A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Our special guest this hour may have what may be the best insight you'll get into the trauma and the brutality that's become commonplace for the Ukrainian people under the Russian invasion. On the front lines of war, lives are lost and saved in split-second decisions by medical staff dealing with the horrific injuries of modern warfare. Well, our special guest today literally pulls bullets and shrapnel from the spines of young Ukrainian soldiers. Their lives are literally in his hands. He understands what is at stake as his people are fighting for their survival. Dr. Dayvid Steryk is a Christian neurosurgeon and part of the Ukraine Christian Medical Association. He's a surgeon who fights to save the lives of soldiers with the most horrific war injuries. Also joining us in the conversation this hour is Professor John Whitehall, who has also spent time serving in Ukraine as an Australian, an expert in paediatrics and child health. And John is the National Chair of the Christian Medical and Dental Fellowship of Australia. And you can see the connection there between the Ukraine Christian Medical Association and the Christian Medical and Dental Fellowship of Australia. First of all, let me say a special welcome to Australia and to our conversation today, Dr. Dayvid Steryk. Welcome, David.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I want to thank the God for opportunity to be here in Australia. It's a big opportunity for me, and I think it is plan of God for me and for our country. Thank you.
And to Dr. John Whitehall, Professor John Whitehall, welcome to you as well.
Thank you, Neil.
Let me come back to you, David, because when we hear of bullets and shrapnel, of war wounds, I know that some of us in a sort of a westernized way might be thinking of television programs that have operating theatres on the front lines of war, but I'm doubtful whether that's the reality of what really happens. I wonder if you can describe for us the working conditions that you are working under on the front lines under the invasion of Russian forces in Ukraine.
We have a very hard situation in Ukraine, in especially last 1 years, because we see the Russian change weapon. They try to firstly it was like bullet injury. Now we see it's ultra rocket attack and shrapnel injury. It's different types of wounds, and we understand. So we change approach in neurosurgery. The patient more harder, and it's too hard to have a nice result with in neurosurgery, but we try. But we see there it is change. It is change for medicine in Ukraine. But we try to make everything for success and for helping the people. But it is too hard in Ukraine now, especially. I was here in. I was here 2 weeks in Brisbane, and I have an observation in two clinic in Brisbane, and I have a letter from the Ukraine and about the situation in Ukraine now. It's too hard to understand how many rockets attack here now. If you know the Odessa. And this is the region near Black Sea, so it's a lot of rockets attack here, and we see the situation in Ukraine is staying more like harder. Yeah.
Dayvid, I know that here in Australia, clearly our medical expertise is not going to be the sort of expertise that's able to deal with rocket and missile attacks and those issues. Undoubtedly, though, neurosurgery has good developments here in Australia, and that's why you're here. And I might just acknowledge the charity called Only Passing Through, and they've enabled you to be here in Australia, where you're visiting several hospitals and sharpening your skills as a neurosurgeon. When you get back to the battlefield, when you're back to that field hospital, what does a day look like for you? I mean, is a day 9 to 5, or are you on call? Are there people being flown in for treatment? How are people coming to you? What's a day like on the battlefield for you?
When I'm come here, I see there is a lot of new technology here, and this has changed my mind for like a neurosurgeon. Some new technology from like Brisbane, Sydney clinic I can use in Frontline, and it has helped me. I think when I'm back in Ukraine, it can save a lot of lives. I'm so glad to there I have opportunity, and I'm staying their organization only passing through. Therefore, for ability to be here and treat their new technology, and it's so useful for Ukrainian people now, and I understand that it's a big opportunity for Ukraine and for lead to the level of neurosurgery in Ukraine, and very grateful, and I'm so happy to I have this opportunity. Yes, so after I'm back in Ukraine, I think I'm sure it is can change their approaches in neurosurgery and the treatment of their military soldiers in Ukraine.
Dayvid, do you operate out of a hospital in one of the towns close to the border, or is there field hospitals that you are there on the front lines as soldiers are coming under attack? What's your workplace?
My place it is public hospital, which we have a localization near the front line. It's 100 kilometer near front line, and we have evacuation in my hospital, and we are the main hospital for military trauma cases, and we have like 90% of military trauma, and we treat almost every military trauma cases, and this is we take the military from like evacuation of their like front line. So it's a hospital which have localization near the front line, and we are treated by operation. Yeah.
As I understand it, both sides have lost even in the hundreds of thousands of fighters. But oftentimes when we talk about those who've lost their lives in war, the number of people who have sustained injury, those casualties that have sustained the bullets and the shrapnel, much, much higher than the numbers who've died. How many patients come through your hospital on the front lines there?
In my hospital, we have 30,000, yeah? 30,000.
30,000 casualties.
Yeah, 30,000 military. It is not only military, but it is military and civilian shrapnel injury. So 35,000 in my hospital cases for two years. So it's a huge number. It is only in one hospital. It's not in Ukraine. We have a huge number of the shrapnel injury of civilian people.
30,000 in your hospital alone.
Only in my hospital.
And the lives of people who are coming through are literally in your hands, and those who would be your colleagues, but there would be life and death decisions that you're making every day.
Yeah.
How is it when you a new case comes before you? How long does it take you to make an assessment as to whether this one will live or this one will die?
It's hard. Sometimes you understand. So we probably have 1 hour for evacuation from the front line to take this in operation room and to take care about this patient. But sometimes you understand that it's so bad condition in this patient, and you understand. So we make operation every cases because we understand that we try to take the chance every military, every civilian people, but sometimes it's hard to understand. It's hard when you try to make this operation and you understand their patient 90% he will die. Even if you take their operation, sometimes it's very difficult for emotional understanding of the situation. But if we see in our hospital, we try to if we have 1 or 2% for success, we try to make operation every people. Yeah.
Dayvid, I mentioned you're a Christian neurosurgeon. When you're taking the responsibility that you do, and you're a young man, we might talk about your age shortly, but you're a young man, you take this responsibility, and the lives of these people are in your hands. What role does your faith play in your ability to do your job well?
I told every people, every patient, that God have planned for everyone, and I'm sure about it because sometimes you understand that it's no reason for living for life. This patient must die, but you make operation in you understand that if God have planned for this patient, he's still alive. But I have a lot of miracle after operation, and it is support my faith for in God, and I told every patient there we need to pray, we need to understanding of plain God's plan on this patient, and it is power for if you have understanding. So not your hands, not your knowledge, nothing can change their plan of God. But if God with you, you can do everything. So if God take your hands for if God support your hand in operation, it's you can do everything what you want, and this is support for me.
This is 2020 with Neil Johnson, helping you make sense of life, culture and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 on Vision Christian Radio.
Well, our talkback line is open. You might have a question or a comment for our conversation today. 1-800-316-316. two guests with us. Dr. Dayvid Steryk, a Christian neurosurgeon, part of the Ukraine Christian Medical Association, and also Professor John Whitehall, who has also spent time serving in Ukraine as an Australian expert in paediatrics and child health. If I come to you for a few moments, John Whitehall, you're dealing primarily with children. But when war happens in an invasion context like we're seeing with Russia over Ukraine, a whole society is at risk. And where do you see the society now, especially for children, young people and child health?
Oh, I think it's the country's in agony. People have run away from the front lines, logically, so that the country is filled with refugees. And the last time I spoke with you, I was applauding the wonderful work that Christian churches are doing for refugees there. But there's also the casualties. Now, here, Dayvid, just to clarify, that's 30,000 over 2 years, which is more or less 5 major cranial injuries. That's his specialty. So over and above that, they're losing limbs and everything. It's hard for Australians to get the concept because we have a functional ambulance system, but over there they've run out of ambulances. Why? Because the drones can spot them and blow them up. So that the guy gets shot in the head or the civilian gets damaged, gets into the back of a truck or something or other, turns up at the hospital, and one of David's initial jobs is this terrible business of triage. That is to say, who are we going to try to resuscitate? I don't know of any other people who bear such a burden as Dayvid does. And it is my prayer to encourage people to support him and the other doctors there and the churches that are behind them. And may I say, we are very grateful for Only Passing Through, which is essentially a Christian charity here in Australia, which raised the money to bring him out in order to further his skill. Especially his skill in removing shrapnel on the spines of young men. And we are very grateful to the hospitals that have done that. So get it in perspective. He's got 5 major cases every day. He's got to work out, are they savable or not? Then he's got to work out, well, how on earth do I put this bloke's head or this child's head back together again now that a piece of shrapnel has torn through it at supersonic speed? You can see it. And so how do I close the wound? And then how do I deal with the infection after it? And then how do we rehabilitate this patient, teach him to walk and talk again? There's a huge burden on this fellow. And I don't think we will ever meet someone more challenged by life. For other people, his own hospital has been rocketed twice. His building that he walked past was demolished in a rocket attack, and praise the Lord, 400 people in his church, 400 people are still there. And he plays the music for them. He's a very talented person. He not only plays with people's brains, but he plays with the music and so forth. A very, very vibrant, stimulating church there that looks after the refugees and the people in distress, the people without clothing. I read about that somewhere in Matthew, or what we should be doing. That's what the church is doing there, and we're very proud to have him staying with us, and we're very grateful to Only Passing Through. And it's a tax-deductible organisation, and maybe we could bring Dayvid back, or maybe there would be other surgeons. But in any case, money is being raised for distribution, for example, through the Christian Medical Association over there.
Dayvid, you are a young man. How old are you? We're hearing here you're dealing with 5 major cases, cranial surgeries on a daily basis. I think listeners might be shocked. How old are you?
I'm 28.
28.
Yeah.
28 years
28.
Old.
Can I butt in here? They have a different training system over there than we have here. And essentially, as soon as you get out of nappies, you can decide, I want to be a neurosurgeon. And that's the way you specialize through. Whereas people like us, they have to do other obstetrics, gynecology, everything, and then gradually work through. That's why he has emerged as a major neurosurgeon at this tender age.
Let's talk about the cranial injuries, because how many, I mean, if you've got bullets and shrapnel to come out of all sorts of parts of your body, but these cranial injuries, in some sense here, there might be other medical personnel dealing with more minor injuries, but when there's a cranial injury, they call you over, Dayvid, because you're specialising in this area. Give us a description of what sort of cranial injuries you have dealt with.
We have a lot of different operation in cranial surgery. I have a lot of bullet and shrapnel injury cases. We try, if we can, we try to remove the shrapnel and bullet, and we make. We cover the defect of skull by titanium plates and try to remove all bone pieces and all damaged brain tissue, and for saving life or prevent the infection of the bullets wound. And I have my own, like it's hard to say their museum, but I have a lot of shrapnel which from my operation, and I think maybe after their finish the war, it's can be like described like I know every shrapnel, and I know every patient of which I like delayed the shrapnel. So it is not only like a piece of metal; it's a history. And yeah.
Wow. So you have a collection of the shrapnel that you have recovered from the cranial skulls of the Ukrainian soldiers and spines, and that to you is an historic record, and will be very important, not only as your own personal memories will be important, but also perhaps even for Ukraine remembering these challenging times in the years to come. You mentioned, Dayvid, you're 28 years of age and still single. I guess that's helpful if you're risking your life working where you do towards the front lines of the conflict. But you are a single man, but you've got family around you in the town that you're living in.
Yes, I have two brother, older. His name Mark, and a younger. His name is Timothy. I'm uncle. The older brother have boys. His name is Nathan. I have parents. My father. He is pastor of their church. In a small town, it is named Ternovka. It's near the Frontline. It's more closer than Dnipro to Frontline, but it's the Dnipro region. They have this church have I think 30 people. It's a small city, and but he's pastor of this church, and I live in Dnipro. I have a big church in Dnipro. I have I take their musician I take their place in worship in a musician group.
Can I just clarify here, Dayvid? When you are in church, around 400 people gathering to worship on a Sunday in your church, and there's every possibility that there could be even a missile rained down on your church, but it hasn't stopped people gathering to worship God. Have you got any reflection on that?
Yeah, but I'm back in my like. What I say there, God have planned for everyone, and when you have a war in Ukraine, you study, you understand that every day in the hand of our God, and every single Sunday, and every hour. So you understand. So you must just trust the God, and make worship to Him. And I think when you have such a dangerous situation in your city, in your country, it's helped to deeply it's helped to take the deeply relationship with the God, because you understand that every day you trust the God, and
every day. As I can hear you say, those Ukrainians are saying this could be our last day. If it was our last day, how would we make the most of it? And when there's opportunity to gather together to worship Almighty God, then people are humbly taking that, because there's got to be something that they can hold on to when their lives are in danger because of a Russian invasion and raining down missiles. Taking calls, 1-800-316-316. Another one of your colleagues, I think, here, John. Dr. Ernest Crocker is on the line from Sydney. Ern has been our guest on 2020 before, but Ern, welcome along.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be there. Yeah.
And what was the comment you wanted to make?
I wanted to say that I had the privilege of hosting Rudy Mihovich earlier this year. It was wonderful. We had him in Sydney, and we learnt much of the situation as it was then in Ukraine. And I want to just tell you, David, that every Friday night we have a formal prayer meeting, and we pray for Ukraine, we pray for you guys, we pray for you by name. But I did contact Rudy in Ukraine early in the morning after the announcement of the American elections, thinking that this might be some kind of blow to the future of what Ukraine was facing, and telling him that we're encouraging him, we're praying for him. But he wrote back, after what we've been through, I'm convinced that crises are good. Thank you so much. So now when there is a crisis, I don't regard it as a problem, but an opportunity. So we here in Australia can learn so much from what you guys are going through. But please be assured of our continuing prayers and assistance in any way we can help. And I'm hoping to meet you on Saturday.
David, what are your thoughts here? A response for Ernest Crocker.
Ern is the New South Wales, or just was the New South Wales director of the Christian Medical Association.
Yeah.
And so he has been praying, and the organisation has raised money and sent it to the Christian Medical Association over there, to Rudy, for example, where it has been spent on.
It's a big opportunity for. I'm glad there. We have a lot of brothers and sisters in Australia, and I'm glad, and I thank God for every people, Australian people, who support their medical association, and in Ukraine, and especially in this time, it's it touch our hearts, our medical Christian medical people, and we want to thank every person who support our association, and it's rich for us, and we understand this is a piece of. How you can show the love of God for Ukrainian people. Thank you. It's touch our heart.
Ern Crocker, while I've got you on the line, and you've just recently stepped down from your role leading the New South Wales arm of the Christian Medical and Dental Fellowship, but the sorts of connections that you have between the Ukraine Medical Fellowship and the one in Australia here. How important is it for perhaps people who are listening to our conversation today, they're connected somewhere in the medical industry, to be a part of something like this, so that when there is a crisis somewhere in the world, you can have some input? How do you think of this, Ern?
Oh, please join us. If you're in healthcare, if you're in allied healthcare, or you're a doctor, We would love you to join us. Our office is in Sydney, but we have all sorts of things arranged. We have a dinner this Saturday night. We have Zoom prayer every Friday night. And one of the benefits that came out of COVID was, if there were any, was Zoom. So we can talk to people in Ukraine. We can talk to people in South Sudan. We can talk to people in Fiji, Central Asia, and they can share their prayer points, and we can understand where their situation is. Really, COVID has, in so many ways, strengthened us as much as it may have been a curse. It's been a great gift in giving us this means of communication for healthcare people around the world.
Right. Dr. Ernest Crocker in Sydney, I want to thank you so much for just a great contribution today. Let me come to the contribution Australia makes. And from time to time, we'll hear of Australian support for military, whether it's bushranger vehicles, those sorts of things. Is there, and I might have to come to you on this one, John Whitehall, is there support that's coming from our Australian government to the medical support that's happening in Ukraine? Are you aware of what might be happening?
Yeah, but you need a good microscope to see it.
Right. Okay.
Too little, too late. I mean, I am not a pacifist. I was in the Australian Defence Force for a while as a reserve doctor, so I declare my position on that. But that we would dismantle those helicopters that Ukraine was asking for, we would and we'd sell them off for scrap, I thought was just immoral. That we don't send more of the Bushmasters over when they're asking for them also. I feel ashamed our lack of.
Okay, let's talk about what the Australian government may be able to be helpful with. Are there some calls on our Australian government now, so far as the Christian Medical and Dental Fellowship of Australia? Is there some sort of request that's before our Australian government authorities to be able to support in any of the hospital facilities?
Well, we did request that they make those machines that will identify bacteria in bodily fluids. You know, you get some pus out of some guy's brain, and you stick it into the machine, and it will tell you in quick order what germ it was and a likelihood of what antibiotics you should use. I mean, they're pricey, I agree, $25,000 each. But I think our government shows that it could spend money in various ways if it wants to. That would be a very humane way to help the doctors in Ukraine.
If I come back,
and then I think, and then an unequivocal statement of support that to allow this democratic country to be overthrown, to overthrow the rules of law and democracy and invade without any provocation whatsoever and slaughter. That's an immoral act, and I think we should be declaring it, we should be criticising it without reserve.
More diplomacy clearly there too. Let me come back to you, Dayvid, and if you had some of these, what John Whitehall describes a PCR machine, something that can determine what germs are on the shrapnel. That would be a helpful thing for you because, if I ask you, do you know what's on the shrapnel? Because if you're talking about infection and recovery after you've done the surgery, you perhaps need to know what's on it. Is there something here you can share? Is what's on the shrapnel that's entering the bodies of these soldiers?
It's really the big problem when you have a bullet or shrapnel injury, because it is difficult trajectory of this piece of metal. Sometimes they go through their through the ground, through their trees, through their houses, and sometimes you don't understand exactly which bacteria can cause the infection. And we try to make a examination, but sometimes we need a lot of time for checking their for checking their antibiotic, and for these people, and we spend there like 1 week for examination, and this is machine can help and take this we can use this machine for examination of their wound, and we can take the result like 1 day or more or less. So it is save the time. It is save their more life. And we, for example, we can. After 1 or 2 days, we can know exactly which other bacteria here and which antibiotic we can use for this bacteria.
And 30,000 through your hospital alone in this past couple of years. Some of us might be familiar with resistance that comes with the overuse of antibiotics when you've got such a concentrated use in your hospital, in your that part of the world there in Ukraine under invasion from the Russians. Is there risk even more for resistance developing to antibiotics? Is there some sort of thing that you're concerned about there?
Yeah, we have in Ukraine we have a huge trouble with their evacuation system, and someone take their one type of antibiotics. Then we have a few days for the rest, and no antibiotic therapy, and then we understand that some of infection have a resistance for this type of antibiotic, and this is machine we can use for checking their bacteria on antibiotic resistance, and it is. I think it's now it's most big problem in after their operation, because we have a lot of experience in treatment. We know how to make operation, how to remove their shrapnel and a bullet, but the success of their treatment, we need to prevent the infection, and this is a common problem now in Ukraine and in my hospital too. Sometimes we use the so powerful antibiotic therapy, but sometimes it is not help. Because we have like multi-resistance infection, and yes.
Okay, it's a major problem for you. Hey, time is short now, and I want to ask you about the fear of the people in your town, in your workplace, in a hospital there, dealing with all of these casualties. Nuclear war is now very much closer, even after some decisions these past few days. How are you feeling about the possibilities? Is there an optimism that you have for the future? Is there a fear of nuclear war in your colleagues, in your family, in your church? How do you reflect on that?
Last few days, we have increased the rocket attack on my city and in Ukraine. And the region near the like Zaporizhia region, Odessa region, Dnipro region, almost every day we have 2 or 3 rocket bombing in our city. When you believer, this is help because you understand that God will protect you and God will save you, and we have a hope. But if we see the other people in my city in Ukraine, we have our fears that sometimes you understand that you can control your lives, and you can take some plans in the future, because sometimes you understand that it's not dangerous here. We have increased the level of the rocket bombing in my city, and sometimes it's can damage you, but it's hard
Dayvid,
to say. We have a few moments in our history for these 2 years, and we have increased the level of the optimistic. Then we have some period in our country. Then we have so passive feeling. It depends from the
Dayvid,
situation.
No guarantees what each day will bring. And I can hear in your heart there's obviously concerns over the potential for nuclear war. And I think we can all be encouraged by that hope that you have that comes with your faith. One of the substantial things to what it is to be a believer, to understand that God is in control, to be able to face each day with a new courage and with a new resilience, that those who have no faith will have some struggles to actually understand. Let me take a moment here. Yep, John?
Can I butt in quickly? I visited one of the major children's hospitals over there. They've thought this through already. Then they know where the vehicles bringing the wounded are going to go. Then they will be hosed down to remove radioactive stuff. In each ward, there was a collection of iodine pills. They're going to start feeding the child because that competes with the absorption of radioactive iodine. Downstairs, they had burrowed out their existing old tunnels, painted all out with beds all the way down the things for the children to be moved immediately down there. And you know what? Each bed had a little toy on it.
Wow. That's just that little attention to detail.
They're taking this
very seriously.
Yeah.
I wonder if I could take a moment here, and I know that there'll be listeners, some who will have been hanging on every word, and I know that listeners will have been excusing a little bit of not necessarily great English there, but just hearing your heartbeat in all that you've been sharing, John. But I wonder if we can take a moment to pray for you and for those who are in your hospital, your family, and if I can lead us in prayer. I know that there'll be listeners who might take a moment, if it's safe to bow your head and to just bring before God this very special guest that we have today and the people of Ukraine who are under such dreadful attack. Let me lead us in prayer. Loving God, we give you thanks for Dr. Dayvid Steryk. Lord, for the skills and gifts that you have given to him, and asking, Lord, for your favour and blessing to be upon him, even as he rises each day and fearlessly goes about his work, saving those young soldiers. I pray you give him steady hands as a surgeon and a wise heart and mind as he shares those words of encouragement and those words of hope for a dying patient. Praying, Lord, for his future, that you'll use him into the things that he will move into in the times ahead, that your protection will be upon him and upon a future spouse and family, for his current family in his current neighbourhood and for his local church, asking for your protection to be upon them. And Lord, that you will give grace and mercy and real favour to everything that they do as they are opening their doors to refugees, feeding the hungry and clothing those who have nothing, asking for your special blessing to rest on Dayvid and on the relationship between the Australian operation of the Christian Medical and Dental Fellowship of Australia and the Ukraine Christian Medical Association. We ask these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Well, it's just a privilege to be able to bring your circumstance before God. And I've got to tie up this whole conversation now, but for people who want to connect with the Christian Medical and Dental Fellowship of Australia, the website is this one, cmdfa.org.au, cmdfa.org.au. I mentioned that charity called Only Passing Through, led by Lara Wieland. They've got a website too, if you want to connect with that charity, passingthrough.net. You can make a donation there too. There'll be a link. They've enabled Dayvid to be here in Australia, where he has visited several hospitals and sharpening his skills as a neurosurgeon. I'll also just quickly mention Saturday evening in Sydney, the annual dinner of the Christian Medical and Dental Fellowship of Australia is on in Sydney, and as I understand it, there may be a seat or two still available. To book, you need to do that today, cmdfa.org.au. To you, Dayvid, thanks so much for taking some time to share your heart with us today.
Thank you for... I want to again thank you to be here, and I thank you for opportunity to tell the people about Ukraine, and it's privilege for me, and thank you for praying, and keep in touch. Yeah,
and thank you to Professor John Whitehall.
Okay, can I quickly say I'm no longer the National Chair. I resigned in favour of encouraging the new generation to take over.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.